So hello. I can see that you've been enjoying our year, version 5783. It suits you. I'm sure it took you a while to get used to it. I can tell it wasn't always perfect. There were good times, there were bad times, there was success, there was loss. There were changes for the better and for the worse. And now you've gotten used to 5783. And good thing too. That means you're probably ready for the new model. The beautiful, newly released 5784. Not only do I think you're going to want it, I think you're going to need it. Even better, I think you're going to love it. Now, what's different, you might ask? What's different, you might ask? All right. Oh, so much. I don't even know where to begin. I know, another update. And it took some time just to get used to the last series of updates. But don't worry, in time you'll get used to this one too. And maybe just in time for 5785, which will probably come with a USB-C adapter, I'm not sure. So now tell me, what's it going to take to get you into the 5784 model today? Now, does this kind of pattern sound familiar to anyone? Whether it's a car or a cell phone, somebody out there is always trying to get us to upgrade. Technology, like time, marches forward. There's excitement, even prestige, when we embrace the latest advancements. Our drive to have the best keeps us upgrading to the newer, the better. Now, sometimes we don't have any choice. Let me tell you, just weeks before my iPhone 8 self-destructed, I was warned. Soon it wasn't going to be able to run the operating systems, and it was going to crash. And those words were more prophetic than anything you could read in Isaiah. And a month later, I got the iPhone 14. It can be frustrating. Sometimes we don't want to change. We would like it if things could stay the same, at least for a while. Now, while I can't stand here and tell you if you need a new phone or a new car, but I do know that if you do, somebody somewhere is ready to take your order. But with the new year, there's good news. If you want it, it's here. And bad news? If you don't want it, it's still here. But the solace is this. Upgrading to this new model will cost you nothing. And so tonight, we sunset, quite literally, as the sun goes down outside, the year 5783. And we prepare ourselves for 5784 and everything as yet unseen that it offers. So let us welcome this new year, and let us now stand to welcome the year as we turn to page 20 and rise for our call to worship. It's about 2 years ago. In the New York Times, there was an article giving advice about when it was actually time to go buy a new phone. And it's oddly informative for us in this Jewish New Year. The article suggested that a change of phone was needed if your phone was becoming sluggish and unable to run the apps. That could be a software issue or perhaps a battery issue. There are fixes that would not require a full change. And if only we could do the same. If we could just download updates from the cloud to prepare ourselves, or if we could adapt our bodies and overcome the challenges of the new year and the sluggishness we might feel. But clearly, those options aren't available. And like with phones, those would just be patches. They wouldn't be as effective as change. Meanwhile, we still have to find a way to deal with our sluggishness. And there's a famous passage from the Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, that tells us about sluggishness. Rabbi Tarfon would say, "The day is short, the work is plentiful, and the laborers are tired. But the reward is great, and the master of the house is insistent. Insistent. We don't get the privilege of being sluggish. There's so much in the world that needs our attention. And God is insistent. We must respond to it. We have got to keep moving. And the good news, tradition believes that we are able to adapt and recharge. It wants us to think like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, who sang, not the one you're probably thinking of, "I don't want to miss a thing." A midrash compares us to, we have one Aerosmith fan in the choir, I think. A midrash compares us to servants who are told by a king that we can stay up all night counting gold pieces. And whatever we count, we can keep. For the promise of such a reward, I think all of us, no matter how tired we were, would find a way to somehow power through. And that midrash says that that's how Moses responded to revelation. When given the gift of Torah, Moses stayed up all night to learn everything that was in it. Inspired by this was the great Vilna Gaon, the Torah scholar from the 18th century, who wanted to be like Moses, to devote every possible moment to learning. So he kept his feet, get this, he kept his feet in ice water. And if he would doze off, the cold on his feet would rouse him. Not a minute was lost. Now, man, you got to talk about your ice bucket challenge. But we don't live in a midrash. There's no king offering us money. We are not Moses. We're not the Vilna Gaon. And nor should we try to be. We don't need to be zealous to the point of exhaustion. However, even if we can't be that zealous, we can learn from this. We learn that there is a mandate. The mandate is not to go sleepwalking through life. At Rosh Hashanah, with the turning of the year, we hear the call, as we heard the call of the shofar. That call tells us that if you're sleeping, it's time to wake up. It's time to upgrade and welcome 5784. No matter how sluggish we might be, that call of the shofar is telling us it's time. Time to reload, time to reboot, and time to recharge. Now you might be wondering, how do we achieve this? I will tell you in a little bit. For now, let us turn to a prayer of freedom. As we listen to this prayer, we think about liberating ourselves from the past and breaking the bonds that are holding us back. And we think about how we can break those bonds and move into the future. We continue on page 33. So this is how we might reload, reboot, and recharge in the Jewish New Year. And I'm going to share with you something that I learned in Israel. Now, a lot of you have asked since I came back, what's something that you learned in Israel? Well, here it is. And it's a Hebrew word. Titchadesh. Try saying that. Titchadesh. All right, some of you are good. We're going to do Hebrew classes next. Good. That word sounds like it could be in the Kaddish, like Yit Gadal V'Tit Chadesh, but it's not. The word Tit Chadesh is about enjoying something new. Literally translated, it means, may you be renewed, parenthetically, by the newness of this experience. The origins for the term go back to the 16th century in the Shulchan Aruch. It gives instructions for a blessing that you would say over a new purchase. And it reminds me of that old joke about asking the rabbi to bless a Ferrari. But I'm not going to tell it right now. Ask somebody. They'll tell you after services. This is not a discussion of humor. It's Jewish law. And in the Shulchan Aruch, they determine, among other things, that if somebody has a new piece of clothing, you would say to them, Tavala v'titchadesh. May you wear it and be renewed. It's kind of nice. Well, today the phrase has been shortened to just one word, and it applies to all sorts of new items. You might wish titchadesh to somebody with their new cell phone, or a new car, or to a friend who bought a beautiful piece of art. And we don't really have this word in English. The closest that we have in English is to tell somebody, use it in good health. But I find the Hebrew wish to be stronger, more meaningful. It's not just be healthy, but may you actually feel renewed, reinvigorated with vitality. And we actually find echoes of this idea in our Rosh Hashanah prayer, Avinu Malkeinu. We say during that prayer, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. O God, renew us for a good year. And in the Sephardic tradition, these words comprise the prayer that you say over apples and honey before you eat them. And that makes sense. Honey consists of very simple sugars, meaning that it was the original energy food. So apples and honey that we'll have later during our oneg, when we eat them during the new year, it's about more than sweetness. The calendar changing can be sweet, but eating the apples and honey enables us to have that energy to burst into the new, to feel revived and confident, to say to ourselves and to say to each other, Titchadesh. May we be renewed and invigorated by trying new things. And as this next prayer says, on Shabbat, we have the opportunity every single week to be rested and renewed by it. So may we on Shabbat and this holiday re-energize ourselves as we turn to page 38 and sing with the choir Vishamru. So I've been a little stuck on this word Titchadesh. I really think that maybe we try using it interchangeably with Lashana Tova. Right? Instead of saying have a good year, we might say Titchadesh. May this new year bring us all renewed energy. I don't want it to just be good. It's got to be great. Renewed energy, opportunity, health, success. You know, that would be a little change that we'd have to make in the way that we think about this new year. But one small change can do a lot of wonders. Maybe that's all it would take to begin the new year with the new energy that we need. Dr. Ben Fletcher, is a professor of psychology at the University of Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom. Now, he doesn't use the word Titchadesh, but he might as well. He believes that we all need more newness in our lives. And he has a word for making changes. He calls it flexing. He thinks that falling in routines makes us predictable. It makes us unable to respond to new challenges. It might seem counterintuitive, but the more that we hold on to routine, he actually says, the more stressed we become. Case in point, I don't know how many of you remember there was a lot of construction on Central Avenue a few months back. Every single day, I would go right down and I would wait to turn onto Central, right into a lane that was closed. So I had to drive on past it, do a couple more right turns just to get back to the temple. But if I had just turned earlier from 3rd Street, guess what? I could have saved myself some time. I could have saved myself from some extra stress. I, like most people, like my routine. And therefore, a prime candidate to practice some flexing. When we go on autopilot, it makes us feel safe. Maybe we conserve some energy. But still, autopilot, at least according to Dr. Fletcher, is boring and inefficient. He suggests that inflexible people, now I don't know how he gets this number, but he suggests that inflexible people are only using 1/10 of their personality. And we can then tap into the other 9/10 of our personality just by being different. And the reward, he tells us, would be better relationships and altogether more fulfilling lives. Now, who doesn't want that? Flex, Dr. Fletcher tells us, is not only life-altering, but it's world-altering. And the way to achieve these world-altering effects, it doesn't come through making big changes, but by starting small. Maybe just a different route on the way to work, a different bow tie. Maybe just a different word that you say to say Happy New Year. Start small. And that carries us into a pattern of change. Now, as you might expect, Jewish tradition has something to say on the matter. But I'll have to tell you about that in a little bit. In the meantime, we hold on to that idea of change. With this next prayer, we talk about our desire for God to accept our prayer. And on this night of change, perhaps we can think, if we keep praying and nothing changes, then it's time to change something in our prayer. Or, beyond our prayer, to change something in ourselves. And perhaps that will achieve the world and the lives that we desire. We continue on page 60, praying together the words of Ritzay. So we think about the term flexing that Dr. Ben Fletcher proposed. We might think that it's telling us don't make big changes. That we think, well, sometimes we should take risks, and that is true. Flexing isn't about whether or not you take the big risk to say, well, it's time for me to start my own business. Maybe I need a new job. I don't, by the way. I'm happy. I'm not going anywhere. Maybe it's time to move to a new city. And I'm talking about the people who moved to Chattanooga. None of you are permitted to ever move anywhere. I like you just where you are. And flexing is not about whether or not we take risks or make the big changes. It's about becoming accustomed to the little changes, to making it a mindset so that we can be adaptable, flexing all 10/10 of our personality so that when the time comes for the big changes, that we can do them with more ease. And I promised that Jewish tradition had something on this. And I'll tell you now. The story is told of the Chofetz Chaim, a 19th century rabbi who was most famous for his writings on gossip. And those teachings forever changed the way that we think about that subject. He was asked once how he managed to have such a great impact on the Jewish world. And it was almost like he had read Dr. Fletcher's book on flexing. Because he answered, well, originally I set out to change the world, but I failed. So I decided to scale back my efforts and only influence the Jewish community of Poland. But I failed there too. So I targeted just the Jewish community of my hometown, but there I achieved no greater success. Then I gave all of my effort to changing my own family, and guess what? I failed at that as well. Finally, I decided to change myself. And that's how I had such an impact on the Jewish world. It started small, and it expanded out. And so as we enter into 5,784, it is a new year that we hope will be a Shana Tova, a good year. And we ask, how will we flex our lives so that in this year we can truly say Titchadesh, that we are truly renewed by it? Will we start by taking that different route to work? Will we assume a new chore or hobby at the house? Will we join a new committee at Mitzvah? Vicky's ready to take your registration right now. Will we make a change to the way we eat? Will we start with something small? See the benefits, but not just the benefits, but also know that with that change, we're okay. And then we can aim bigger and bigger and flex 100% of our personality, and then make 5,784 the best year ever. I hope that if we ask ourselves in this year if it's possible, that all of us will say yes and do it. So I wish you all a year of change, a Shana Tova. You can say Shana Tova. And Titchadesh. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may that be God's will. And let us say, Amen.